Hello and welcome to another Tyrrell's Classic Workshop. This time round I'm talking about Lamborghini Espadas, or particularly this Lamborghini Espada. This of course is Harry's Espada, Harry Metcalf's, who has the YouTube channel. I think it's up to about just short of 360,000 subscribers now. Well done to him. He bought the car from me about 10 years ago, something like that, in my old business, Cheshire Classic Cars, when we focused more on sales as well as restoration. And he enjoyed the car for a great number of years, and it started to play up on the Lamborghini 50th tour with the factory of the Islero and Espada, which I was on as well. It started to overheat and misbehave a bit. So we had a chat about it late last year, and he said, "Would you please have a look at it?" And I said, "Well, you do realise it's probably serious, head gasket or something." And he said, "It's unusable as it is, let's just sort it out." So we got the car in, and it was indeed head gasket. We diagnosed where the gasket had failed, and it was leaking from between a combustion chamber and a coolant passage in the cylinder head. So we rebuilt the engine, but Harry's brief was, he didn't just want us to rebuild the engine like a normal Espada engine. He wanted us to uprate it a bit as well. So that's what we did. So I started on a journey of looking at weak links, strengths, weaknesses, doing an analysis of all the internals of the engine to seeing where we could gain extra horsepower. So what we've done is I commissioned a special set of pistons which have been made by some people in California to a beautiful standard. I also commissioned some special valve springs. I worked with a valve spring manufacturer to come up with a valve spring which was not too strong that it would wear out camshafts, which is one risk, but also it allowed the valves to rev more highly, to oscillate more highly without causing valve bounce. And done one or two other tricks with the clutch plate to make sure that's safe to high RPM, which it wouldn't be standard. So this engine, when it's run in, my sort of request from Harry was to make it safe to 8,000 RPM. And hopefully we've done it. So I'll be driving alongside him with my hands in the air, ready to catch pistons and connecting rods and valves when he does it for the first time. But apart from that, I'm pretty confident that we've actually fulfilled our brief. So my story with Espadas started very early on. They were the sort of car that inspired me, really, to get into automotive engineering. In 1975, when I was a lad, at the parents' family home in my hometown of Wallasey, the house was on a fairly main road. And one hot summer's day, the bathroom window was open. I was washing my hands at the sink, and I heard this most amazing noise driving past the bathroom window on the road. And I dived to the window and looked out. And there was a beautiful Tahiti blue, a lovely blue metallic Espada. I'd never heard of V12 before. 1975, most of the cars on the road had very wheezy, pushrod engined, four-cylinder engine cars. So a sort of four-cam V12 was really, really, really off the scale. And that hooked me instantly. When I started my first business, Tyrrell Engineering, in 1984, about a short time after I started that business, the guy actually rang me, the owner of that car, and said he'd like me to do some work on it. So I took the car in, and I ended up buying it from him. It was a bit tragic, really, because we spoke several times on the phone. It came in for work, but I ended up doing the deal with him. We agreed a price. And then he died in hospital, and I never actually met him. So I ended up giving the money to his wife. I mean, it was a really, really strange situation. But that was my first venture into Espada ownership. So the Espada was really responsible for getting me into this sort of car and this sort of engine. Fast forward, we finished Harry's Espada, it's all built up, it's back in the car. We started the engine and it fired first time, amazing, on his video. So what I'm going to do now is take his car on its maiden voyage. So this is the first time the car's been out. I'm going to tune the carburetors, set them up with my usual trick with the hose pipe and the screwdriver to make them balanced and make them all the right mixtures at idle. And then we'll actually just take the car on the road and do a first few miles shakedown mileage in it. One of the jobs we were going to do for Harry was to put a lighter roof panel in. And I've ascertained that we can't do this with anything other than perspex, really, because it's got a slight curve in it. And the cost of making a piece of glass would be prohibitive, really. So there is a shortage of perspex at the moment because we live in the age of COVID-19. So for the moment, I've got perspex on order, which is a lighter green to match the windows, but it ain't here yet. So for the purposes of road testing, we've actually put this panel back in place. It's well stuck down, it ain't going to go anywhere, but we're just awaiting this final element of the job. He actually asked us to make the wheel spinners black as well, because there are photographs of the car years ago with the wheel spinners in black, and they really do look good on this car actually. So we've done that. So let's just tune the engine up now, do a basic tune up on it. Nothing fancy because we've got to put some miles on it really before anything else, and we'll take it from there. So what I've done here is just given these a basic tune-up at this stage, the carburetors, because there's no point in going mad because all the cylinders need to bed in and start to work properly, etc. And then I'll revisit this and give it another more detailed tune-up. But it's certainly good enough to go on the road with now. The engine's performing beautifully. There's not a hint of a leak anywhere. Or anything untoward. She sounds beautifully mechanically quiet, as it should. And let's give her a whirl. Yeah. Yeah. Eggs on the floor there. Should we see if it fits? Almost made for the job. Well, this is literally the very first journey from the workshop for this car. I'm just nursing it into life, but she's very, very happy at the moment. The gear change is much better with the new bushes in. We put some new oilite bushes, as they're called, in the gear lever linkage, and Harry will be very happy. That's much more positive. The car handles very well. I mean, all Espadas do when they're properly set up. They're considering they're such a big car, the ride handling compromise was really right from the get-go, and that was all down to Bob Wallace, the New Zealand test driver and engineer who developed the suspension on these cars. Just great, really smooth ride, but very flat handling as well. Yeah, Ferruccio called the Espada his Rolls Royce, which is stretching the truth a little bit, but it was it was the fastest four-seater in the world for many years when it was built, and it is capable of doing those cross-continental journeys. And if everybody's a little bit compromising on space, you can actually fit 4 adults inside it. It is pretty genuinely a full four-seater, not just a 2+2. And there's also good luggage space as well. One of the things that's always struck me about road testing different cars over the years is that some are a bitter disappointment. You get in them and you've revered them and you think, oh no, I don't like this at all. And other cars that you've really not liked, you get in and drive them and suddenly they just come to life and you think, this is a car I've really underestimated. One such car was the BMW M1. The first time I drove one of those after we'd had it in for some work, I just thought to myself, forget the tacky switchgear, forget the slightly angular look of the design. As a car, they drive ever so well. And this car reminds me, I sort of put it into the same category as a Lotus Esprit or an Aston Martin Lagonda, the sort of Series 2 Lagonda, the very angular one, because it's got that sort of planted, flat, stable, but smooth feel about it. And the view out of the windscreen is quite similar in a way. This really angular, sort of almost flat windscreen. This car is going really, really well. It's behaving itself. The water temperature is absolutely where it should be. Oil temperature is 6 kilograms per centimetre at 2,000 revs, which is just about right. And the oil temperature is holding well too. This car is going really well, actually. I'm just nursing it back into life. I'm not asking too much of the engine at all. You can just feel it respond a little bit to the tiniest input on the throttle. I'm sure Harry's going to be very, very happy with this car. Very happy. This steering wheel is actually off a Series 3 Espada. It's smaller than the Series 2 one because the Series 3s had power steering, which means they could be a bit higher geared, and so you can have a smaller steering wheel. But this has got the excellent easy electric power steering system, and it does make a difference to the handling. It is better for it. Yeah, she's going just great. Really, really good. Picking up very cleanly. No hint of any hesitation or misfire or anything. Just great. And again, we're running it on cheap and nasty oil to bed everything in the engine. It's no use. It's actually counterproductive putting expensive engine oil in a new engine of this era, because it doesn't allow everything, the piston rings to bed into the honing, the cross hatching in the bores properly, things like that. Yeah, all good. Even though I'm not asking anything of the engine, you can just see that the Espada handles sublimely. It's just taking the corners beautifully. No body roll to speak of, no drama, just all there and lovely. Well, if you've enjoyed this video, Harry's got 6 videos about the Espada engine rebuild, charting it from beginning to end. Go to his channel and have a look. Thanks again to Harry for everything, and we'll be back soon.